Hello people, I'm Tommy, and I love hitting things with bats, but how am I going to continue this passion while also using little to no physical energy? The Wii Sports games are some of the most iconic video games out there. The original Wii Sports got the world hooked on motion controls and gained a large crowd of people who never even played video games, and introduced the world to line graphs. Wii Sports Resort improved upon almost everything, specifically motion controls, and the new sports included caused the game to be drowned in praise by fans and critics, and included even more line graphs. And Wii Sports Club? I want to see just what's so special about these games and why I and many others dumped tens of hours into them as a kid, and if these motion-based games hold up today. But first, the year is 2005. Nintendo was in a swift third place in the 6th generation of home consoles, and they really needed a powerful console with a heavy-hitting pack-in game to combat the upcoming consoles from Microsoft and Sony. During E3 2005, Nintendo's newest console was announced, the Nintendo Revolution, with discs for O's. How fucking stylish. Despite it only being seen as a slightly more powerful GameCube, Nintendo assured everyone that this console would revolutionize the gaming industry. The rest of the conference was dedicated to Nintendo's new handheld at the time, the DS, and the future releases for Mr. Bronze Medal over here. By E3 2006, the Revolution name would be dropped, and the name of the GameCube's successor would be finalized, the Nintendo Wii. This E3 was dedicated to the console, and Nintendo were focused on one game that would come with it, a sports game titled Wii Sports. During the conference, Nintendo showed gameplay footage of tennis being played. Now, I was too busy being a 3-year-old at the time to care about this conference, but I would have been in disbelief seeing that tennis racket move with the controller. Nintendo also talked about the inclusion of other sports along with Wii Tennis. That included Wii Golf, Wii Baseball, and Wii Airplanes. A few months before the release of the Wii, Nintendo would announce that bowling and boxing would be included in the game, while Wii Airplanes would be dropped. An iconic part of Wii Sports is the characters you play as, the Miis. But Miis were not originally intended to be the playable characters of Wii Sports. During the 2007 Game Developers Conference, Shigeru Miyamoto discussed how Japanese wooden dolls were considered for the role of playable characters, before changing to characters from the Mario series. Nintendo preferred the simpler designs of the dolls and decided upon Miis to populate the Wii world. Wii Sports would be bundled with the Wii and would go on to be the best-selling game on the console, and still holds a place as one of the best-selling video games of all time. But that was 15 years ago. Times have changed, and does this sports pack still hold up like many people who try to relive their childhood would tell you? Well, let's see. And as I go, I'll be rating these games out of 5. 5 for great, and 2 for golf. The game that the public got to see when they were trying to understand the concept of the words Wii and sports. Tennis is quite simple as you and a fellow member battle it out against a rival gang on the court for control over the territory. I'm more neutral about this game compared to loving or hating it like the other sports. It's best to play this game with 2 people, but if you're alone, it makes for some fun for a round or 2. Baseball is easily the best game here. On bat, all you have to do is swing at the right time and hope that the AI doesn't gain the intelligence of a supercomputer, and when you pitch, it seems like it doesn't matter how you throw the ball, and it doesn't, but having the ability to pick how to throw the ball, which I never knew you could even do, is great. And I'd be the first in line to partake in a Wii Sports Baseball esports tournament. This is also the sport from what I've seen that has the highest level of butterfingers to it. Here it is, the game everyone loves, often considered the best bowling game in history, and I think it's a very fine. This version of Wii Bowling is enjoyable, but obsolete nowadays. I can see why kids like me and many others got into it back when it was the only Wii Sports game on the market. It can still be just as addicting as Wii Sports Resort Bowling, but I can never go back to this version after the pleasures of Wii Motion Plus. All in all, a fun game, but the real compliments will come later. I do not like golf. I find this game to be an example of how Wii motion controls were not the perfect emulation of real life like the Wii advertised. I just don't find this fun, and the hardest part of this game is not dying of boredom when playing 18 holes. At least this game will have a second chance in the future. The last sport of the Wii Sports quintuple, boxing, really shows the flaws of motion controls. Wii Boxing is easily the most complicated game of the collection, and is the only game that requires the use of the nunchuck. You use the Wiimote nunchuck combo to mimic punching as you knock down the elderly. I still prefer this game over golf, but it gets very repetitive very quickly. The last part of Wii Sports is the fitness and training. Fitness makes you go through a series of challenges each day to guess your fitness age. And training has different challenges and games to play at any time. This mode would be expanded on in Wii Fit, which is a completely separate can of worms. These challenges are okay, but I rarely, if ever, go back to these. In the end, Wii Sports did a very good job of displaying the capabilities of motion controls. However, sports like boxing and golf also showed just how flawed early motion controls were, with more complicated motions being needed. But still, there's a reason this is one of the best-selling games of all time. Because it was a pack-in title, but also was a great way to introduce veterans and new gamers to the world of motion controls. Let's see if those positives carry over.
Okay, here we go. Okay, everyone, form up.
After the smashing success of the Wii and the success of Wii Sports, a sequel felt like a no-brainer. Like discussed before, Wii Sports' biggest flaw was the poor motion controls in its more complicated games. To counteract this, during the development of Wii Sports Resort, Nintendo created a giant zit on the ass of the Wiimote. The year is 2008, and Nintendo was at their peak, while also burning the eyes out of everyone in the E3 audience. This was not Nintendo at their best, but what was important was that some of the most important pieces of Wii history would be shown at this conference. The Wii Motion Plus accessory, gameplay of Wii Sports Resort, and Wii Music. Despite Wii Sports Resort going on to be one of the most loved games in the Wii library, Nintendo absolutely fumbled showing this game at E3. Poor showing of gameplay made it look wonky and unfinished, moments that would make anyone grind their teeth. Despite its less than stellar showing at E3, Wii Sports Resort would be released on June 25th, 2009 in Japan, and 1 month later everywhere else. Starting up the game, you of course get the greatest opening to any game ever, and you're welcome to the game's main setting, Woohoo Island. Looking back, you really gotta wish that Nintendo never actually made this island, because you know that there's no place on the planet that can actually compare. But the setting doesn't matter without the games, so let's go over them one by one. And due to this entry having more than double the sports than the original Wii Sports, I will keep my opinions pretty brief for each of the sports and game modes included in them. Fucking amazing, absolutely beautiful, no flaws, all the game modes are timeless, dueling, slicing, me genocide, it's all perfect. Wakeboarding is a part of the... As a kid, I had some weird vendetta against playing any of the water sports in this game, and after playing wakeboarding, I'm kinda sad about that because this is a great game. It's the perfect example of an easy to understand high score based game that can be incredibly addicting. But there are some moments where it feels like you should not have screwed up. Still, one of the best games here. I'm probably worse at this game than it was at the E3 showing. It's once again a pretty simple game to understand, but was just something I could not get into. I did kinda get the hang of it after playing a bit, but wasn't much of a fan. And Frisbee golf sure is a thing. Archery is a game that utilizes the nunchuck. You aim back and release, quite simple stuff. The game is quite fun in short bursts, a hell of a lot more fun than Disc Thrower over here. Basketball games peaked in 2009 and was mostly because of this game. 3v3s are the bee's knees, and 3-point contest is the ultimate rage mode in this game. Best game to play with 2 people. Very fun, and in my opinion, superior to normal tennis on Wii Sports, but it can never compare to Wii Play table tennis. They somehow made a golf game slightly enjoyable. This really shows how the next big leap forward for the game industry should be focusing on making a single-player golf game that's actually fun. You do not count. Now this is the greatest bowling game ever made. If Wii Motion Plus did anything, it turned a decent bowling game into the greatest way to play bowling. The other modes are fine, but standard bowling is where it's at. There's a reason this is the most fondly remembered part of Wii Sports games to most people, addicting and incredibly replayable. Another water sport, and it's okay. It's another high score based game like wakeboarding, but I don't have any drive or enjoyment to play more. Not terrible, but wakeboarding is superior. I'd rather experience the 10 plagues of Egypt than play another minute of this f***ing game. Another sport that I'm sure has its fans that I couldn't get into. It's fun the first time playing, but I lost interest really quickly. One big plus is that this sport includes one of the best music tracks in the game. The final game of Wii Sports Resort, and the one that has its origins all the way back in the original Wii Sports Reveal. You do get to play the parachuting game that you play at the start of the game, and that's fine. But none of that matters when you have the motherfucking island flyover. If you wished Woohoo Island was real, you're about to be even sadder that's not, because this is absolutely incredible. Flying around Woohoo Island is nothing short of breathtaking. Exploring ruins, going to faraway islands, going inside the volcano. This game lets you see how all of the other sports in the game are connected. It makes Woohoo Island feel so much more real. I love and respect everything about this game, except for that time limit. This game was easily the best of the Wii Sports trilogy. The improved motion controls and sheer amount of love and polish that went into creating Woohoo Island is amazing. Sure, not every sport is perfect, but you'd be hard-pressed not to find something amazing about the game. Now it's time to jump over to the Wii U and see the final game of this beloved series. The year is 2012, and I did not get a Wii U because 9-year-old me was certain the next year's Xbox One would win the console generation. Nintendo wanted to go back to the good old days by being third place in the home console market. Dozens of people believed that the Wii U was nothing more than an add-on for the Wii, and clearly the way to market the Wii U as its own thing and not some Wii 32X was to create a new Wii Sports yes! During the September 18th, 2013 Nintendo Direct, we would find out about this new game and its name, Wii Sports Club. Nowadays, Wii Sports Club is seen as the black sheep, the unknown of the Wii series, sitting with the likes of Wii Music and Wii Chess, the Wii game with the weird-ass release. Yes, the story behind this game and how Nintendo went about it is honestly more interesting than the actual game itself. It didn't take too long to find out that Wii Sports Club was less of a Wii Sports 3 and was more of a Wii Sports remake. Announced was the inclusion of new features like online and the pass system. For a fee, you could rent a sport for a certain period of time, or for $9.99 you could buy it forever. This was mostly done as an experiment by Nintendo to see how well their online shopping model would do with the new Nintendo eShop. What this really did was make people confused. Due to the release of each sport being spread out throughout 2013 and 2014, with tennis initially being the only sport available. Later, during a Wii Fit U Nintendo Direct, yes, a Nintendo Direct is centered around Wii Fit U, 10-year-old me would have lost his mind when the Wii Fit activity meter was announced. Yes! At the end of the Direct, Wii Sports Club Golf were announced, and by June of 2014, boxing and baseball would be released to the eShop. Looking back, due to the way this game got released, it's honestly a miracle it got a physical release at all. Also, it has no curve shape at the top of its spine because f*** you. With the release of Wii Sports Club, the mechanic that made this game unique was the club mechanic. You select where you live and are supposed to go up against other people around the world, which sounds fun actually. Too bad no one plays this game anymore. The big selling point of this game is pretty much unplayable now due to no one playing Wii Sports Club, meaning we get to play offline like the Wii Sports gods intended. Okay, let me get this out of the way real quick. I'm lumping these two together because bowling and tennis are pretty much the same game as they were in Wii Sports and Resort. Both these games don't take advantage of the Wii U gamepad at all, and are mostly used for optional stuff like Miiverse, which doesn't even exist anymore, whoop-de-doo. I prefer the Wii Sports Resort version of bowling, and table tennis is far superior to regular tennis. Not much else to say about these games. One extra detail is that when you select online game for bowling, the game sends you to a waiting area that has a completely empty bowling alley. No people and no music. Nintendo ended up making not only the best bowling game ever made, but also the scariest bowling game ever made. Boxing is easily the most improved sport here. I had a lot more enjoyment with this version of boxing than the original Wii Sports Boxing, mostly due to the fact that this game lets you use 2 Wii remotes at once instead of the bagged air that is the nunchuck. The motion controls are much better here than in the original Wii Sports, and due to there being no real boxing alternative in Wii Sports Resort, this is easily the best way to play boxing of the Wii Sports games. I'll admit, I haven't been too nice to golf, and here is no different. Nintendo at least tried to make this experience of golf unique with the gamepad. I'll give it points for actually using the gamepad, which 3 of the sports on this game can say, but still, I really don't like this way to play golf. I'm sure it's just a me thing, and people who play like this could get into it and enjoy it, but I could not do it. Definitely superior to the Wii version, but if I was held at gunpoint to play a Wii Sports golf game, I'd have to go with Wii Sports Resort. If you wished for the hitting bat simulator to be just the same, I got good news for you. In baseball, the batting part is pretty much the same as the Wii version. When you get to the pitching is when it gets interesting. Not only is it easier to understand how to throw different ball types, but you can now control where to throw the ball. This is a much needed addition and can make baseball much more competitive if people actually play this game online anymore. Due to the way that this game was released, and this just being a Wii Sports HD remake, I'm not surprised this game is mostly forgotten nowadays, which is a shame because I found myself enjoying this game over the original Wii Sports. Just like pretty much all Wii U games today, the online is pretty desolate, and its best selling point with the club mechanic already wasn't that enticing to begin with. According to online statistics, however, it shows that a decent amount of people played and most likely had a lot of fun with the game, which is very nice to see that some people at least had good times. It wasn't going to be the motion control revolution like Wii Sports, due to motion controls already being established a decade earlier, and the lack of new ideas in sports like Wii Sports Resort really killed potential sales for the game. It suffered because it tried to do what its predecessors did before it, and didn't have enough new features to make it feel unique, which honestly can be used to describe a lot with the Wii U itself. I'm sure that there would have been tons more good things to say about this game if I'd played it during its heyday before the release of the Nintendo Switch, but now it's just a slightly enhanced port of Wii Sports. Also, you sons of bitches removed the line graphs. Wii Sports Club now sits right next to Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE, a fate worse than death. The Wii Sports games are remembered very fondly in the hearts of many. If you have a kid who has never played these games before, I fully implore you to dig up your old Wii or Wii U and pop in one of these games. In the end, all I can say is these games encapsulate what video games are meant to be. Fun for everybody. Now if you excuse me, it's time to practice for the Wii Sports Baseball Esports Tournament, created by yours truly. And that is the Wii Sports experience.